Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining us this late in the day. However, I wanted to provide a brief update in relation to the demonstrations that have taken place in our city today. As outlined in the public presentation that we provided yesterday, our aim was to ensure public safety and to reduce the impact of these demonstrations along 17th Avenue and in our Beltline community. We were going to do that using a number of tactics, including a recently obtained injunction order. I'm pleased that the demonstrations avoided impact on 17th Avenue and occurred without any injuries or property damage. After speaking with the demonstrators this morning, we permitted them to move from their staging area at Central Memorial Park to a more appropriate protesting location at City Hall. That occurred shortly after 2 p.m. By using the sidewalks and without an escort from police of any kind, the group went in smaller subgroups and made their way down to City Hall, and this was not in violation of the injunction order. They moved to the location, as I said, that was more appropriate for demonstration than what they had been using in the previous weeks. Once arriving at City Hall, they did use amplification equipment in order to address the crowds, and that is permissible under the current injunction order, and there's probably about 1,000 people, I would say, at City Hall at that time. The protest ended peacefully at City Hall approximately 1 hour later, and the demonstrators then headed back towards Central Memorial Park. Earlier in the day, and concurrently with some of the things I just talked about, a second smaller group, Group B, approximately 100 people gathered at Low Heat House. That group split up over a period of time, with some of them moving up to Central Memorial Park and some of them following Group A and going to City Hall. Officers were at the scene of both locations and worked to ensure that the two groups did not clash. At times, there were exchanges between the two groups that were extremely hostile and tense. Police, however, managed to keep the groups apart and cleared the crowds out of Central Memorial Park to bring today's events to a safe conclusion at around 5 p.m. During the day, 6 arrests were made for various offenses, including breach of the injunction, as well as assaulting a police officer. 10 traffic tickets were issued under the Traffic Safety Act, as well as 1 vehicle was taken off the road for several failures under the commercial vehicle regulations. That occurred outside City Hall and involved a large and decorated semi-truck that was incessantly sounding its horn in violation of the injunction order. That driver was arrested and the truck was towed from the highway. In addition, our partners at Bylaw issued 3 tickets, and I anticipate there will be more enforcement data coming in relation to parking offenses. So Bylaw did focus on parking issues in the area. However, the data and the numbers from that automated enforcement are not available at this time. We also have established an investigative team that is dedicated to following up with charges connected to any of those arrested where follow-up is required, as well as any charges that can or may be laid based on evidence that was gathered throughout the day today. All of this work required a significant and coordinated effort with our city partners. These are partners that we have been engaged with and have worked together for many years. However, with the recent escalation and change in the approach and non-cooperation of organizers, it led to what you witnessed this weekend, a strong effort by a team of officers as well as our partners at the city. This has been the culmination of a lot of heavy lifting by our planning and legal teams, and these efforts will continue as we work together to bring peace back to the Beltline and the surrounding communities here in Calgary. To the residents of the Beltline, we know we have more work to do, but we certainly want you to have full trust and confidence in the Calgary Police Service and our members. I would also like to take this chance to say a big thank you to the community members in the Beltline, in particular for those who complied with the injunction and with the police throughout the events today. We saw a high level of cooperation from folks from the Beltline. This was a significant reason why we were able to bring this matter to a peaceful resolution today. I will also end by thanking members of the Calgary Police Service for continuing to show up and provide extremely professional service to our communities, not just as part of your response to this particular demonstration, but throughout the city as they safely and professionally respond and resolve hundreds of calls a day. We all know how easy it is to assume that for people to assume that they have all the facts and to try an armchair quarterback from the comfort of their homes or offices. But please know this, I know and see what you are dealing with and managing, and I'm incredibly proud of the work you are doing. I'll now open it up for questions.
Thank you, Chief. Our first question is from Dave Naylor with Western Standard. Go ahead, Dave. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Apologies, everybody. Chief, could you give us a sense of the numbers of officers and sheriffs involved today? Certainly dozens and dozens publicly, but how many involved?
Hi, Dave. I actually don't want to discuss numbers of resources that were out there today. I'd like to tell you that it was several hundred, but it wasn't that many, but I'm going to keep away from the specific numbers. But we did have a large contingent of Calgary Police Service. We had, as you say, members of the sheriffs and also partners from bylaw and other city services.
As a supplement, I'm interested in your strategy in front of City Hall. Why allow traffic to continue to flow along McLeod Trail, which was separating the two groups? There was obviously numerous people honking. Officers were filming those people who were honking. So if you could just explain your strategy there, and are those guys going to get an unwelcome ticket in the mail in the days to come?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Some may. I can't guarantee. If you went by there and you were honking, I wouldn't want to guarantee that you wouldn't. Yeah, thanks, I know that some may. I can't guarantee if you. Does someone have to mute there? I think we're okay now. Yeah, I wouldn't guarantee that somebody, if you were honking incessantly, that you wouldn't. I know that bylaw was looking at sending out some tickets via mail, but I can tell you that if somebody is driving by and honking incessantly, you stand a good chance of getting at least a ticket or being arrested for violating the injunction. I can tell you that it was, an example of somebody who was arrested for violating the injunction was the large semi that came through and that was incessantly laying on the horn. So that's one end of the spectrum. I think what happens there sometimes when people drive through where there's lots of people gathered, they do honk, but they're just continuing on through. And in many cases, as you say, maybe not part of either group. In those cases, I would say that the chances of getting a ticket are probably much slimmer. But really, to your point about, why did we keep the road open there? It was around the strategy of actually minimizing traffic disruptions in the city. So, given the fact that even though there was a protest going on at City Hall, doesn't mean that actually we should be shutting down roads if we don't have to, and then detouring vehicles, around their regular routes. So it's really around just trying to minimize impact on drivers in the downtown.
Thank you, Chief. Our next question goes to Alana Smith at Post Media. Go ahead, Alana.
Oh, hi there. It's Alana Smith, actually, from the Canadian Press. I just had a question more so for clarification. Are you saying that none of the orders in the injunction were violated today?
Well, no, I think, Alana, I said there was 6 people arrested, and a number of those were for violating the injunction. I think, actually, my reference was when I said the injunction. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I should be more clear. Like when they were marching down the streets, like say Stephen Ave back to the park, Central Memorial, would that not be an injunction violation?
Well, the way we looked at it, Alana, is if you or I were to walk down Stephen Avenue, could we walk down the middle of it? And so that's sort of the litmus test. So depending on what road they were on, they had to follow the rules of the road, whatever that may be, and that's what happened. The reality, I think, at a very practical level is, the people had to move. There was some concern initially about when they moved from Central Memorial Park down to City Hall. But the reality of it is, how do you get anywhere? How do you get back to your car? You need to actually walk on the sidewalk. So there was some certainly consideration given to where people were going and what they were doing, and whether or not their activities were any different than anybody else in the area would be.
Gotcha. And then just one more for you. I know you said that today ended with a peaceful resolution. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are in terms of, next weekend and the preceding weekends, what's going to happen, what the plans are for police, if you can talk to that at all.
Yeah, I can. So even though, when I say it ended with a peaceful resolution, for the most part it did. But I did mention that there were a number of arrests, including an arrest for assaulting a police officer. I can tell you that there were some exchanges today that were very, very volatile and very tense. There were, I wouldn't say both groups, Group A and Group B, everybody. There was portions of Group A and portions of Group B that were intent on coming together and engaging in conflict. And I mentioned that Friday, that some of this, not all of this, but some of what's going on here is not really about causes as much anymore as it is about conflict, at least for some of the people. So we saw it again today. There was people moving and maneuvering to sort of put themselves in a position to engage in conflict with somebody from the other side of the group. So, that doesn't bode well, to be frank. We ended up having to push people out of Central Memorial Park at the end of the day, and there were 4 arrests made just there of individuals who were, I would say, agitators and who were causing problems. And so we made the arrests on those individuals. So as we go forward, like I say, this was not an issue that developed in one day or one weekend, and it's not one that's going to be completely resolved in one day or one weekend. But I do think that we saw a high level of cooperation from the majority of both groups today, and that was very helpful in actually minimizing the disruption of the overall events of the day. So I think we take that as a positive.
Thank you, Chief. Our next question goes to Adam McVicker of Global News.
Hi, Chief. Thanks for taking my question. How feasible is it for Calgary Police to do this every single weekend? It was quite a significant response out there, and I was wondering, is it possible for that type of level of response to continue over the next coming weekends?
Yeah, well, you make a point, Adam. It's not the only thing that's going on in the city either, obviously. So we have a big and busy city. But I can tell you this, we are 100% committed to bringing back peace into our communities, where we see that these protests have, like I say, have pushed the boundaries of Section 2 of the Charter. We are completely committed to making sure that our communities are protected and that people have, safety and solitude in their communities. And so whatever we have to do to make that happen, we will do. I would appeal to people generally just to say, give some thought to your neighbor. And we did see a little bit more of that, not fully, but we did see a little bit more of that out there today, where people were thinking about, how can we actually comply? How can we continue with our protest, yet comply with the order? That was a question we received from some. And so I think that's positive, right? Nothing in the order is intended to ban peaceful protesting from, our city or anywhere in Canada. But the fact of the matter is, it has become disruptive and it's pushing the boundaries of Section 2. So I think as we go forward, we're committed to doing what we need to do. And I see signs of people wanting to actually cooperate and help that out. So I hope that continues.
And just to follow up here, Chief, they moved to City Hall. The Group A, the large protest, moved to City Hall. Is that the hope that that's the location for these protests as they continue at City Hall or Olympic Plaza, that area?
It's a way better area, Adam, in terms of location and potential for disruption, particularly when we have it happening on the weekends. Certainly, Municipal Plaza, when people are protesting something that might be relevant to the municipal government, makes sense. When people are protesting, at the McDougall Centre around something provincial, that might make sense. Harry Hayes was another one we heard about. But yes, that's a place where people can go, where certainly we don't have, generally speaking, the same level of disruption as we see when we have it in some of the parks. So yeah, that's preferable.
Thank you, Chief. Our next question goes to Tim Bruce.
Hey, sorry, I don't have my my outlet written in there, but I'm with CTV. What happens next? I think a lot of us believe that the protesters were kept peaceful today because of some of the threats from the city and from police this week. So is there any concern that, you lessen some of the response? Obviously, we can't have that many boots on the ground for every Saturday for the foreseeable future. If that gets lessened, do you think maybe the protests will continue and even grow in size?
Well, the thing about the protest movement, it certainly has evolved over the last number of years. I think, the big thing for us is we will take away the learnings from today. We'll look at what went well and what didn't go as well, and we have some learnings already that we've already made note of. Certainly moving forward, we will make adjustments where we need to. There may be areas in which we can even strengthen the order from our experiences there today moving forward. And so we'll continue to work with people. We had a high level of engagement with both groups before, during, and after the event. And I think, the fact that we're talking and that sort of thing is good. The fact that there was, I would say, again, there's portions of both groups that actually want to comply. And then we have portions of both groups that actually do not want to comply. So again, that's a tension that we're managing there. But again, I'm pleased to say there's at least dialogue going on both sides. And so that's always positive.
And then a quick follow-up, 6 arrests made. Can you give us any more info about what specifically the injunction-related arrests were for, and maybe a little bit more light, Sean, on the assaulting a police officer arrest?
Yeah, I can. So I think 4 of the arrests were for breach of the injunction. So those individuals would have gone straight to jail, and they will appear in court next week. One of them was a warrant arrest. One of the protesters, who we've become well aware of over the last couple of years, had an outstanding warrant for their arrest. And the other arrest was in relation to, I think that was also a breach of the injunction, and that was the individual in the large truck who was honking his horn. So yes, so those were the 6 there. Lots of tickets. I think probably between 10 and 20 issued now, and some I said in the mail. Those were generally speaking for horn honking. We were focused on the noise and disruption. So horn honking, in some cases there were individuals with phones that were driving along and filming things, and they would have gotten tickets for distracted driving and these types of things. That's mainly what it was. The assault police officer was in relation to an agitator in the park who was trying to cause problems or trying to cause a conflict. He was arrested, and when he was arrested by officers, he resisted that arrest.
Thank you, Chief. Our next question goes to Helen Pike from CBC.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I have a follow-up just on what you were talking about. So did 6 individuals get arrested? I was just a little confused because you said 4 and then you listed 2 kind of incidents. So could you just clarify that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, so it was 6 individuals, Helen. Yes, that you're absolutely right. There was 4 specifically for breaching the injunction that happened at Central Memorial Park during a clash between the 2 groups. The 2 others were sort of separate. One happened down at City Hall. That was the individual that was in the large truck sounding the horn. And then the other individual was an individual who was participating in the protests who had outstanding warrants.
Right, so kind of a mix of the groups got arrested.
Actually, if I was just doing the back of the napkin math in my head, I would say that all 6 were affiliated with Group A.
Okay. And then I am curious, because we did have a question on Friday just about the nature of Group A, the bigger group. You had mentioned that there have been people witnessed who are part of far right groups or have known links to white supremacists. And I'm just curious today if any of those individuals were witnessed kind of joining that group or joining along with the protests.
I would say, Helen, none of the people that are known to be affiliated. I can't think of anybody that was here today.
Thank you, Chief. Our next question goes to Alejandro Melgar from the Emery Wheel.
Hello, thank you. My question is, well, it's related to the 2 groups. So with Group B, Community Solidarity Calgary, from my understanding, they have a police liaison there to like assist them with understanding what police are essentially doing while they're protesting and whatnot over the past couple of weeks. So my question is, with the Freedom Protest or Group A, did they receive or do they have a police liaison or any police there to assist them when they are protesting?
Yes, actually both groups have liaisons, and really that's a strategy that we employ with all groups that are going to protest in the city. We end up reaching out just to find out, who's organizing, how many people are likely to be involved, where and what the protest is going to be about. And then we can have some sense of what the impact might be on what area of the city and for how long. And so, yes, there are liaisons to both the groups, Group A and Group B.
Awesome. And I guess like my question there is, what kind of influence do they have over these 2 groups? Like, can they ever form some type of strategy to ensure that maybe they're not being disruptive to communities?
Well, that's the goal, and that's the whole, that's the whole aim of the program, the police liaison program like that. I think one of the biggest challenges that we face with respect to the groups is that they're not homogenous. And so, I think of Group A, which is the bigger group and which has evolved over time. You speak to people who are, quote unquote organizers or individuals who are leaders within the group, but they will tell you too that they only have influence over a certain portion of the group because, again, the group's not homogenous. And over the years, with that particular group, they have been, together, and then they've been splintered and that sort of thing. So again, when you're talking to even the leaders that you're aware of, you're not necessarily talking to somebody who speaks for the whole group. And that's really, the challenge, I think, in dealing with these type of groups is that, we do our very best. We talk to the people, we have relationships on all sides, but at the end of the day, it isn't always the case that somebody speaks for the large, the whole group.
Thank you so much.
Our next question goes to Jessica Gus from Global News.
Hi, Chief. Thanks for taking my question here. Just in regards to the speakers at Group A's protest, one of them was very well known, Dawid Pawlowski, and under his conditions, it does state that he has to read a certain excerpt that the judge had given the brothers when they do talk about anything regarding coronavirus, et cetera, things like that. I guess just a question for that is how come he wasn't arrested kind of, I think on the spot is the wrong word, but he was able to, speak to the crowd, get on the mic, things like that. How come due to his judge orders, and especially because he is, I would say, well known to police, he wasn't kind of stopped in the interim?
Yeah, so I'm not sure the answer to the question there, and thanks. But I can tell you that every time somebody's at the mic at these types of protests, we are recording and we're aware of what's being said. In fact, a lot of times the groups will live stream it themselves. So if we are not, if a person is arrestable, you may see them arrested sort of, as you say, on the spot, or we may follow up after and do it. So I wasn't aware of that particular individual speaking at this particular rally, but I can guarantee you that if that's a breach of some sort of court order or whatever, that will be followed up on.
Thanks for that. And just as a second question, in regards to, like you mentioned, the vitriol, the hate, everything that's being spewed at your officers, what type of resources are there for them? I mean, even watching some of the videos, they were really kind of pushed and shoved in there. What does CPS do for their own people?
Yeah, well, thanks for acknowledging that. Firstly, I think that in talking to a number of the officers, I was out at the briefings this morning and talking to folks throughout the day, and I can tell you that it was another very difficult day. Even though things ended well, they're to be given full credit for the work that they've done. But I can tell you that when the two groups came together in the park, there were, again, there was probably, it was explained to me about 50-50, where half of the people were cooperative and would, listen to the police and that sort of thing, and the other 50% were anything but, and they were very, very disrespectful. And so that grinds on you, especially over time, I think, right? And so again, I think we have professionals, we hire great people, we train them well, and they know how to control themselves. They know that people are trying to provoke them and that everybody is taping. And, the good news is the officers themselves in Calgary have body-worn cameras. So we collect those things. But we do, to your question, have a very good suite of psychological supports and peer supports and that type of thing to make sure that actually people are looked after, because certainly it is a very, very divisive time. It's clear that the community is divided in many areas over many issues, and it does spill over. And as I've said before, and not trying to be philosophical, but people are not bringing their best selves into many situations, and I can tell you we certainly see it, and the officers are front and center for it during these protests.
Thank you, Jessica. Our next question is Kylie Peterson. Go ahead, Kylie.
Hi there. It doesn't say on my name, but I'm with CBC. I just had one more follow-up question on the arrest to clarify. Was the person who was arrested for the assault on the police officer part of the 4 individuals who went to jail for breaking an injunction, or was that another one? Because we have the guy in the truck, we have the warrant arrest, and then you said there was 4 individuals who broke in the injunction. Was the arrest for the assault on the police officer a 7th, or was that one of the 4?
No, so there were 6 arrests in total. One of them was for the individual that assaulted the officers. So I believe that he was arrested initially. So there was the initial arrest of him, and that was for breach of the injunction. That was for agitating and looking for a fight. And then the officers intervened, went to take him into custody, and he was resistive. So he was charged with assault. Police officer, I believe he was also charged with breaching the injunction order. And he
Great.
would have been his number would have been one of the 6 that I talked about.
Thank you.